We need to talk about the Nazis. More specifically, we need to talk about a movie that came out last year about the Nazis called Nuremberg. This was a surprisingly good movie. It had Rami Malek and Russell Crowe in it, so I knew right off the bat the acting should be pretty good. I'm just going to dive into my favorite part of the movie, and this is mild spoilers. There's a Jewish character who wants to get revenge on Nazi leadership, and he's part of the US Army. And his plan is to wait till one of these characters, one of these Nazis, is executed after the trial at Nuremberg. He wants to befriend this Nazi striker and wait until the day of his execution, right before he's headed to the gallows, to reveal to him that he's actually a Jew, and to get some form of revenge on this Nazi that way. My favorite part of the movie is when we actually get to the execution, and this Nazi striker is losing his mind. He's screaming, bellowing, crying. He clearly doesn't want to die. And this Jewish character who's befriended him goes in to his cell to comfort him and help him get ready for execution. And you can kind of see, you're kind of waiting for this character, this American Jew, to see whether he's actually going to carry out his plan of revenge and reveal himself as being Jewish to this Nazi, to deliver him one more crushing blow at his most weak and vulnerable point right before he dies. And it's fascinating because he doesn't do it. He himself just doesn't want to stoop to that level of inhumanity and vengeance. And this scene was so powerful. Like, I was not expecting that kind of resolution, honestly. It's very subtle. It's not a heavy-handed message like a lot of movies about the Holocaust or Nazis like to be. It's not... You're kind of expecting to be this payoff where the Jew gets his revenge on the Nazi, but the moment where he decides to let this man have some form of peace before he dies and not to add to his distress is so subtle and so moving that I cried a little bit. I don't expect to cry from a movie like this. But more importantly, I think it adds to the greater message of the movie, and it's a very disturbing message, which is that the difference between normal people and Nazis, even these Nazi leadership, is very small. And it comes down to small decisions like that. Do you show empathy to your fellow man? It's fascinating. It's really, like I said, unexpected in this part of the movie. I like the complexity that this movie brings to moments like this because not only is it totally unexpected, but there's many layers to it. For example, maybe the Nazi totally deserved to be crushed one more time. Maybe it wasn't even about revenge. The truth shall set you free at some point, so maybe it would have been better for the Nazi in his last moment if he knew that the man who befriended him and comforted him the most before death was a member of a race that he considered inferior and that he thought he was justified to hate. It's completely left up to the audience to decide, and I love movies like that. It ties into the broader message of the movie, which is laid out very, very clearly by the psychologist character, Rami Malek, toward the end of the movie, which is that the Nazis, specifically Göring, are not raving lunatics. They're not necessarily even psychopaths. They're surprisingly normal. Back in the 90s, there was a book published called The Fourth Turning, and it's promoting an idea called the Strauss-Howe generational theory. Basically, if I oversimplify that theory, it's that history in some way repeats itself every 80 to 90 years, and the oversimplification of that is that 80 or 90 years being one long lifetime is enough for people to forget the lessons that their parents and their grandparents learned. It's enough time for a civilization to completely turn over. Not just change, but basically do a complete 360. Each 80 to 90 year period of turnaround in this book is called a saeculum, which to a lot of Catholics will be familiar from our prayers in Saeculum, Saeculorum, Amen. In the Age of Ages is a roughly literal translation. Interesting part of the Our Father, by the way, which is not translated literally into English most of the time. Side point. So it makes sense to me that people are questioning the past and questioning our modern civilization, and we should, because it's very easy for us to take for granted the period of relative peace that we live in right now. Now, I'm talking about America specifically, but the West in general. We haven't had a world war in 80 years. That's a huge amount of time for the modern world to go through without a world war. I mean, the first two were, 20 years apart? The attitudes we have toward ideas like Nazism right now, and the ideas that we've had since the Second World War, are not necessarily normal. The peace we have right now is not necessarily normal. If you look at long-term history, I think anyone can start to see that the Nazis were very similar to other empires that came in the past. Just as an example, the ancient Romans, especially Emperor Hadrian and Vespasian and Titus, these guys were responsible for genocide against the Jews in the 1st and 2nd century AD. A lot of us barely even read about that in our history books, but I'm pretty sure they would agree wholeheartedly with what Hitler promoted and what the Nazi regime did. Even people like Martin Luther openly said that we should not just deport Jews from our countries, but burn them. This is very important to talk about. Without making this video too long, the rationale for this was that, well, the Jews see themselves as a special race, and they look down on everyone else, and they think it's okay to take advantage of other races. Now, I'm not saying this is correct. I'm saying this is the rationale for genocide and for deporting all the Jews from your country. And it's what most people in Europe believed for a very long time. If you think that's uncomfortable to talk about, look at the rest of the world today. People who travel internationally sometimes make the point that the United States is actually the least racist country on earth. I don't know if that's true, but if you go to some place like Japan, China, Korea, I know for a fact that the attitudes there will be very racist, very judgmental visually based on someone's skin color or their presentation, and even racist between Asians. That's a classic example. So the idea of racial animosity is actually very, very normal for humans. Pride is very normal for humans. In fact, our society, in many ways, pushes pride all the time. We have to analyze our motivations not based on simple ideology, but based on how much empathy we have for those we disagree with, how much Christian charity, I would even say, we show for the members of society that for whatever reason we think are beneath us or despicable, we have to remember the words of Jesus, who said that when you do something good, even for the least of these, even for the people that you consider the lowest faction of society, the people that don't deserve, perhaps, anything good to happen to them, even when you do something good for them, you've done it for me. You've done it for Jesus. This attitude is lacking across our society. There's instead an attitude that's growing with the fall of Christianity that says hatred is fine. And I'm not going to excuse Christians from this at all, because many Christians are great at disobeying the command of Jesus to love everyone, even our enemies. It's a normal pagan thing to hate your enemy. Let me read this. October 1943, Heinrich Himmler. The extermination of the Jewish people was to be a never-to-be-written page of glory that was difficult but necessary. Himmler acknowledged the horror of seeing 1,000 corpses together and praised the SS for somehow remaining decent people despite the psychological burden of their actions. The Nazis considered themselves to be tragic heroes that had to put aside empathy in order to do the right thing. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they didn't enjoy it all the time. Some of them did. I'm not excusing them. I'm just saying we have to look at motivations if we're going to judge history, if we're going to learn from history, and if we're going to improve ourselves and try to be better than the worst people in history.